Okay, great. Yep, relax. Okay, good morning. This is Senate Natural Resources and Energy, and it is May 1st. And we are starting the morning off with looking at some language in a bill that we don't have, but is relevant to our committee. This is the miscellaneous agriculture bill from the House, H 44, and we'll welcome Mr. O'Grady to come tell us about at least one, if not a couple parts of this.
Sure, I'm going to be focusing on two parts. One is a provision regarding the collection of waste pesticides, and another is related to the 3-acre stormwater permitting of agricultural affairs. So you should have a copy of draft number 1.1 of the Senate Ag Committee's amendment for H4. With a 4/17 date and a 4:26 p.m. timestamp. The language that I'm going to focus on to begin with is on page 24. You may know that all pesticides in the state are required to register annually in order to be sold in the state. And there is a revolving fund in which those registration fees are deposited. And one of the purposes of that fund is to defray the cost of the collection program for obsolete and unwanted pesticides, so waste pesticides. And the agency does that by ostensibly collecting the pesticides from solid waste management entities, from their hazardous waste collection events or from their permanent facilities. However, the agency hasn't been paying fully for the costs that municipalities incur in managing these waste pesticides. As a result, they are looking for both a short-term and a long-term solution to the issue of covering the cost of collection of waste pesticides. So what the bill would do on page 25, as part of the registration fee for pesticides, there would be an additional $50 per product. And that would go into the revolving loan fund for use for basically for use for collection of waste pesticides, for the collection of obsolete and unwanted pesticides. And while that is ongoing, there is a requirement that the agency that on page 26, in consultation with DEC, study options for sustainable funding sources to reimburse solid waste management entities for all costs associated with collection and disposal of unwanted or obsolete pesticides. And this will include on page 26, line 12 and 13, consideration of the viability of an EPR program for pesticides among other options. And then they are going to submit their findings to you on December 15, 2025. And the report shall include a recommended funding mechanism that will cover all costs associated with collecting unwanted pesticides through municipal collection programs. And that is the language on pesticides.
Okay.
The language on the 3-acre exception for agricultural affairs is on page 29. And you will see that what is listed is the stormwater section of Title 10. I provided that for context. I added definition of agricultural fair. An agricultural fair is an event or activity that is intended to promote farming by exhibiting a variety of livestock and agricultural products, exhibiting arts, equipment, and implements related to farming, or conducting contests, displays, demonstrations designed to advance farming, advance the local food economy, or train or educate farmers, youth, or the public regarding agriculture. And then under the 3-acre permit, so 3-acre permit is right there, C7, going from page 30 to 31. But then there are exceptions from all of the stormwater permits. And there would be an exception added. So this is no stormwater impact fee or completion of an offset shall be required for an agricultural fair that is registered with the Agency of Ag. Nothing in this section shall be interpreted to exempt an ag fair from stormwater permitting requirements other than the payment of the stormwater impact fee or the completion of an offset. So the committee has been going back and forth. This is language proposed by A&R, but they've also been looking at just a straight exemption for agricultural fairs. So this is basically saying that they wouldn't have to pay, or have to conduct an offset or pay a stormwater impact fee once they have met all the obligations that they can conduct on site at the fair. But the committee has been kind of swinging back and forth between this language and just a full-fledged exemption for agricultural fairs.
And so where it stands right now, the committee is this language?
I can't really
Okay, I understand.
say for them
That's
where they are.
fair. That's fine.
They know that Rutland is the state fair is really the big concern. They know that other fairs have already invested and are complying. They are hoping that something can be done with Rutland that everyone can agree to. But in the meantime, they are planning for conditional options.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I understand this. So if this is the language that ends up passing, then
So
then they, because they would otherwise need an offset, they can't do it, but then we're not requiring them to have an offset.
right,
And we're not collecting any money from them.
Right.
So basically, it's like,
you
it's
do-
kind of de facto an exemption, but it's,
well, they still have to do what they can physically do on
Okay.
site.
oh, I see, but for whatever remains.
Whatever remains, what they, remember that the manual requires you to meet a performance standard. And if you can't meet that performance standard, you do an offset in the watershed, same watershed, that will bring you up to that standard, or you pay stormwater impact fee that meets that standard. This is saying they just have to do what they can do under the manual, and then they don't have to do an offset, and they don't have or an impact fee.
Got you. So. The choices are we exempting them to do anything versus you gotta do what you can do
On site,
and then remove us aside from that.
yeah, yeah,
And there are presumably some things they can do.
yes, I mean, there's a whole host of alternatives that you can do under, each has different different benefits, so if you add them all up, it's probably not gonna get close, it'll probably will get over 50%. Right? You know, well, we don't really know, it's up to the engineering analysis. So,
Well, that is good to know. And I'm going back here a bit, but in regards to the pesticide work, we can hear from folks separate, from this, but would you, would you say it's fair that this language has been generally not controversial?
well, the agency that with Slimmies proposed it. So this is compromise language. Slimmies are they are having cost issues and they want to either through covered household hazardous products or paint or these waste pesticides. They want those costs to be addressed the way that they're originally contemplated. And so they're currently not. And so this will help cover those costs until a more permanent solution, whether it's EPR or something else. Is
Yes.
Do you know if this problem is because of increased use of pesticides or just increased people bringing them back, or what's the, you know?
It's, there's a few different factors. There is the at collection, that's the volume can be significant. How you manage them is, dispose of them is expensive. What they're getting from the agency is not what they want,
What they're getting in terms of funding or in terms of support?
both.
Uh-huh.
And so. It's a increased cost on them that's not being covered the way that it was contemplated under the pesticide revolving fund.
Okay. Yeah, because I looked at this language and it's been tweaked a whole bunch of times in the past about how to use these things.
Okay. Thank you. And just to flag it, there is another section of this bill that was written by Ellen Tchaikovsky
Yes,
about accessory on-farm businesses. We'll be hearing more about that at another time. So with that, yep, so we're gonna transition to Senator Harrison's amendment. So we passed out H 41 about stormwater. And Wendy's got some thoughts on that. Michael, how are you on time?
this isn't 481.
Oh.
I have 483.
Where's one?
I don't know who's this like.
No, that's 481.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes.
Okay, sorry.
Great, thank you.
I
I have 5 minutes.
You have 5 minutes. So Wendy, is it okay if we have Michael
Of
go
course.
first and then you
Yes.
can tell us about it? Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead.
So First Amendment Municipal Implementation Program. Remember, moving from a grant program to a more flexible financing program. Existing program. This would allow for municipalities to receive assistance under the program for designer engineering services. Were necessary for the formation of municipal stormwater utility. So it's not. There are steps that have to be taken to form a stormwater utility. Where the boundaries are gonna be, what the systems are gonna be, mapping the system. Things of that nature for the design and engineering of the utility and. That currently the municipal program is focused on the permitting. But you've now allowed it for assumption of the responsibilities for the 3-acre subs. And this is an additional activity that would be eligible. And then in the stormwater management public resource guide. The agency will be directed to provide a modified law or ordinance for the formation of municipal stormwater utility. That's been discussed in the past, just hasn't crossed a threshold for it being done or being required. And so that would be required under the public resource guide. And then the third amendment, this is adding to the stormwater management and regional stormwater utility study committee, a representative of the municipality of the designated downtown area served by water and sewer. That is not subject to an MS4 permit appointed by the city.
Okay, any questions about this?
Is this replacing the other one?
No, the MS4 representative remains. The representative of the small municipality remains. This is a community that. It's intended that it's one that has a vibrant population, not any specific number, but doesn't have an MS4 requirement and doesn't have a stormwater utility. And that is what this is intended to address.
So how many people would be on that committee, the added this one?
I think it's.
170? Yeah.
I don't have the bill in front of me right now. I wasn't planning to walk through it, I wouldn't know about it.
That's okay. Don't worry.
I think it's.
This would add 9.
Nine, okay,
This would be a 9 for,
It looks like it would be a 9.
yeah. Thank you.
which is an odd number.
Which is
I
a
like-
good thing.
Okay. Any other? I feel like this is relatively clear, so I don't have any questions about it. Any other? Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, using the funding from the municipal stormwater. Implementation, it's the municipal stormwater implementation.
That's the one with the minimum of a million annually. And then the 5 million recommended, required recommended next year.
Okay, so we would put it the next year, so okay,
Right.
just trying to figure out how much this would divert from other things, if we had another, but they would still have to. It wouldn't be an automatic, it would just be part of what,
No, you still have to apply and the agency with their. New authority to have more creative financing. They could do a low interest loan, they could do a no interest loan, they could do a grant, then there's opportunity for them. I don't know if you would call that program to be a true revolving fund, but we'll have some revolving. Component.
So I'm gonna have some questions for Mr. Kamen in a little bit, but I want to hear from Senator Harrison first. Before we go to those questions, but okay, thanks so much. With your thank you.
Doesn't go without tax.
Oh, this is interesting. Okay, Senator Harrison,
I almost heard that. But you'll ask. Yeah, thank you for having me. For the record, Wendy Harrison, I represent the Winds District. And thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this bill. The 3-acre rule has been a real challenge for many communities, and especially these stuck ones, or communities, and it's great that you're taking care of that, because those are many actually really good sites for development, but they're not being developed. They're in that stuck situation. So the amendment has 3 parts, and I'd actually like to go from the back to the front, if you don't mind.
sure.
And just start with the representative of the municipality of the designated downtown areas with our water and sewer infrastructure that is not subject to an MS4 permit. And I have it as appointed by the Speaker of the House, but if this committee wants the Senate to, it doesn't matter to me. That was just how it came through. And but the purpose of this is right now there's a representative of very small communities, I think less than 2,000 or 2,500 people, residents, and then there's also a representative of a municipality subject to the MS4 permit. So you have a relatively large municipality and a small municipality, and I think most of our towns are in the middle. And the towns that I've been directly working on stormwater utilities with are in the middle. And so I thought initially about saying 6,000 to 10,000, and then I thought about using grand list as a way to measure that. But the characteristics of the community that I was concerned about being heard in this process is a community that has a downtown, that has some stuff going on that generates stormwater, but is not within an area where it will automatically get help if from the EPA if there is an issue, because I do think another benefit of the bill as a whole is that we'll prevent problems from happening, so that we won't be doing things in a forced manner. But those towns, so like Brattleboro is one, Rockingham is one. I'm sure you have towns in your district, that are like that. It's hard to get over the initial hump of establishing the utility. Once the utility is established, it's not difficult to administer. But it's difficult to get over the hump, because you need to do the mapping and you need to identify the equivalent residential unit. And then communicate it and legally adopt it. That's why the model ordinance is in here. And you probably talked about this already, but a huge benefit of the stormwater utility is that it's a financial mechanism for the town, and it diversifies the revenue of the town, so you're not reliant just on property taxes. So property taxes are only paid by those who are not exempt, right? So schools, churches, highways don't pay property taxes. But if those entities generate offsite stormwater, they would pay into the stormwater district. So you have a separate logical revenue, and it's something that the property owner gives the property owner an incentive to reduce their offsite stormwater. So unlike property taxes, there's not much you can do. You're not gonna devalue your property, hopefully. But you can reduce your stormwater, so you can pay, you get a financial benefit from that, and it would generally just be the larger property owners who would do, or the owners of larger properties who would do that. But so there's revenue, and it could be considerable and really help towns, because if you look at your towns, and this, I've seen this in middle and smaller towns. Half of the budget is often the highway budget, and it's a highway budget is often a separate budget. And a third to a half of the highway budget relates to stormwater. Because that would be grading, it would be culverts and the stone lined ditches, and that's getting more expensive every year, right? So that part of the town's budget could be financed through a stormwater utility. So hopefully what the town would do would be, when you implement a stormwater utility, you reduce your property taxes. And you show the public, the relationship between the two, because the town would annually approve the public works budget as it does now. And the public works budget is the basis of the expenses for the stormwater utility. Question, yes, go ahead.
So how do you regulate that? I mean, water district, you got a meter.
Exactly,
So how do you determine how much to charge them
right.
for storm?
Right, so what you do, it's more like wastewater, because you don't, because wastewater, you can assume that if the water goes in, the water goes out, but there's some situations where you charge like based on numbers of bathrooms. But with stormwater, you have the equivalent residential unit that you establish. So you first this is where you need the engineering help. You look at what is a standard size of a single family home. So say the lot is an acre, and say the impervious area is a quarter of an acre. So that would be the roof of the house, and the if you have a driveway, would be the driveway, paved driveway. So that amount of impervious surface, that becomes the equivalent residential unit. So all of the single family properties would pay the same amount, and they're the only ones who don't really have a way to reduce their payment, because it would just be too complicated to administer. So then what you do is, and a lot of this can just be done online because everything's mapped. You look at the impervious surface of the other properties. So if they have twice the impervious surface of the single family, they pay double the ERU. So the rates that they have now in the places where they have stormwater utilities, it's usually about between $80 and $100 a year for one ERU. So it's not a huge amount, and people who own property that doesn't have any impervious, they pay nothing. So it's more fair, too, I like the fairness part of it.
Well, I know the regional planning commission in my district has already done mapping
Yes,
for all the downtowns. And so that part of it is, don't think, by and large, I don't know if anybody has to approve that.
well, what you would do, you have to, so the ordinance and the map are the two things that you need. And that's why a sample ordinance would be extremely helpful to towns. But then the map and the designation of the sites, that's where you need an engineer to just validate it. But unfortunately, the 3 acre or not the 3 acres so much, but the orphan communities, that's an impediment to so that's the great thing again about this bill is it helps get over that, and you could even use a stormwater utility as a way to blend the orphan community into the stormwater utility, but that would be up to the town.
Yes, go ahead.
So I know most of the towns in my district are small.
Mhm.
And the town manager's the dog catcher, the health officer, how do we get an FTE for those people to do this? Because we do have a wastewater treatment specialist. And he takes care of the water district too, but it's gonna require an addition man for nearly to do that.
Once it's implemented,
And trained.
it doesn't require a lot. If there's a property owner, say there's a grocery store that has huge asphalt lot and they don't need it all, they would be paying for this, and so they would reduce it. And then they would want to pay less, but they could hire an engineer to certify that they had paid less. So the implementation of it isn't that complicated. That's why I was really trying to get it done, in these other towns. But it's the establishment that's difficult, and so that's where the towns need money. That's why I asked for the part of the amendment that allows towns to be eligible for the design. That's basically the design.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Senator Hughes?
I
Yes,
was just wondering whether we want to use, if you propose, it's designated downtown, the right proxy officials comes. I haven't looked at it for a while, I just wanted to know that it doesn't, the firm designated downtown go away under the new law.
That was staff's recommendation, and I thought it was a really good recommendation because he's aware of all of the areas.
Chris Cochran,
No,
that's kind of.
O'Grady, yeah, I was trying not to use the name.
If that's what they think, that's fine, I just.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good suggestion.
It's not gonna be there.
Right, and that's not a requirement. Well, that's a requirement one time.
right.
For the person, it's not an ongoing requirement, but it is being done.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, okay, all
But
right,
it's only for the person to be on the committee. To just identify that kind of municipality.
So we need to keep moving, certainly, but did you have any, is it quick?
It is, so who's can we count on the clean water providers to help implement, I mean. You're probably gonna have, yeah,
It would not likely be the clean water providers
Okay,
that would be doing this.
so who's-
This is a separate kind of, it's a different kind of approach.
so who's gonna implement? Who's gonna-
So it would be up to municipalities to run it. If they chose to, yeah, nobody's forced to do it.
Right, and then VLCT is aware of this, I mean, I don't know if they saw this amendment, but they've been aware of this for a long time.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
and Mr. Kimmon, can we just ask you a couple questions about
My
the
pleasure.
amendments?
Absolutely.
Since we have you. With the first instance of amendments, about using the money for stormwater utility and design and engineering. Does that, cause you have a point system for allocating money. Presumably, if this was in here, you would figure out the right number of points to assign something, a project like this. Because presumably it all needs to go towards phosphorus reduction, and so you'd have to be making some assumptions about how much, as a result of this work, how much phosphorus would be reduced. Curious for your thoughts on that, but more generally, I'm curious for your thoughts about all of it, just in general.
Sure. Good morning. For the record, I'm Cameron, Deputy Commissioner, Department of Environmental Conservation. Thanks for having me in. Thank you for flagging it. Senator Harrison has some experience with stormwater utilities that I personally don't, and being manager of the spill, I've been intrigued by speaking with her about some of these ideas, which I think are good. Implicit in this amendment is the concept that if we can make it easier for smaller towns to also take on the opportunity of being a utility. I'm not ready to give up the idea of regionalized utilities yet, because I think there may be some intersect there, but we'll see. That's what the study committee is all about. To your question, so generally, I'm fine with this. DEC is supportive of this amendment. It's fine. Specific to the funding that's contemplated, or the allowable use of funding, we haven't explicitly said so, but there is already a mechanism through the Clean Water Fund that allows incentive payments for stormwater utilities to get started up. AOA was providing $25,000 per year for 5 years for a utility to get started up through the Clean Water Fund. That program is gone away, but it's not really gone away, in that it could be restarted through the Clean Water Board's process. So this is giving us the authority to do something that frankly I already have the authority to do. It's just being a little bit more explicit for a municipality that's looking at this statute to say, okay, I can ask for some engineering assistance if it's needed. In terms of the prioritization, there's a whole rule around prioritizing state revolving loan funds, right? This is a little bit different.
Okay.
Obviously, this is Clean Water Fund. We would have to figure out, of course, how to prioritize. But I mean, if a town is looking to create a new utility to do some of the things Senator Harrison was talking about, that's got some benefits that transcend just 3 acre, right? So that's a good thing.
Okay, that's great. So no concerns generally about this. Okay, fantastic. In that case, look to the committee for your thoughts, any discussion about this? Okay, I agree. So if we could do a quick straw poll, all in favor, raise a hand or say aye. Okay, great, and opposed. Okay, so we will anticipate that you're gonna bring this to the floor when it's time.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Do you have a question? Okay, great.
What's the name?
Oh, no, okay. No. All right, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Also, if I mean, next time.
Hey, so we're gonna move now to another potential amendment, turning to Senator Beck. We had
Whatever you gave me this morning.
Oh, no, we've already gone through this one, dude.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is 2.1 that you want?
Well, the 3.1, but we voted on 3.1 yesterday in this committee.
Oh, okay.
So that's maybe I can.
No, maybe I have the right. Sure. How about this one?
Can, I actually would really love to.
Yes,
discuss
that's-
that. So we take just like a 2-minute break.
And can we find a minute so I can give my report?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Make sure we got it.
Yes, down my toes.
3 minutes?
And we'll take, if we could take a 2-minute break.
Sure, yes, fine.
That'd be great, and we'll. Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to shut the sound off, guys, and I'm not having any.
Can't see you 2 minutes break.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just sitting on the sound, I haven't shut the sound off yet, I'm having trouble with it. It's not. What, maybe? I'm not sure. Keep trying.